You just haven't been selfish enough. Let's be clear though, we're discussing the absolute diction of the word, lacking consideration of others, not considering the impact, judgment, and achievements of others relative to your own, is selfishness. Before we dive into this though, let me provide you with a little bit of context. I've taken up reading lately. School laid it on me as an involuntary and tedious assignment, but I've come to honestly enjoy it. Recently, I just finished Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, a 694-page novel published in 1943. It's the story of an intransigent young architect and his violent battle against conventional standards. The novel showcases Miss Rand's personal philosophy and the topic of our discussion, objectivism. Objectivism is, like any other philosophy, an operating system for life, providing you a method of thinking and the infrastructure to effectively live your life. The basis of the philosophy is simple. Reality is objective. Everything is the way it is, and you can't change it, and thinking about changing it won't yield change. This isn't to say, for instance, government can't be changed. Government is a construct of man. Anything developed by man has every opportunity to be improved upon or altered. Similar to Stoic philosophy, the aim here is to focus on externalities which you have power over, not those which are absolute and non-conditional. Now here's where being selfish comes in and why you should consider your personal happiness more. As I mentioned earlier, we are dealing with the uninterpreted diction of the word. The connotation of selfishness implies exploitation of others for personal gain, or a lacking of empathy. You should be more selfish by pursuing rational ends to your ambitions, whilst living in harmony with others by respecting their own right to live on their own terms and pursue their own goals. This philosophy puts emphasis on the self. To better illustrate the idea, here's an excerpt from Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. Look at everyone around us. You've wondered why they suffer, why they seek happiness and never find it. If a man stopped and asked himself whether he's ever held a truly personal desire, he'd find the answer. He'd see that all his wishes, his efforts, his dreams, his ambitions are motivated by other men. He's not really struggling even for material wealth, but for the second-hander's delusion, prestige, a stamp of approval not his own. He can find no joy in the struggle and no joy when he has succeeded. He can't say about a single thing, "This is what I wanted because I wanted it, not because it made my neighbors gape at me." Then he wonders why he's unhappy. Every form of happiness is private. Our greatest moments are personal, self-motivated, not to be touched. The things which are sacred or precious to us are the things we withdraw from promiscuous sharing. But now we are taught to throw everything within us into public light and common pie, to seek joy in meeting halls. We haven't even got a word for the quality I mean, for the self-sufficiency of man's spirit. It's difficult to call it selfishness or egotism. The words have been perverted. A book written nearly a century ago still addresses the desire to consider the opinions of others, to throw yourself in the public eye and seek approval. Humans deal with the same basic issues no matter the time period, simply in a unique or amplified way. Anyone can have a dream, but to assure it's not corrupted by public opinion is paramount. But here's the thing. I'm not an objectivist. What I've portrayed thus far likely sounds appealing to some of you, but this doesn't reveal the extent of objectivism. Ayn Rand lures you in with self-evident facts and idealistic assertions. She deals in absolutes and rationality. But have you ever known the real world to be absolute or entirely rational? I've disregarded the narrative of The Fountainhead aside from the brief summary because it deals in extremes. To most, the book is an enticing metaphor for creative pursuits. This is why it appealed to me. However, Rand didn't intend any interpretation in between the lines. The brash character of the story isn't to help convey commentary on self-fulfillment and staying true to your own virtues. It's Rand's literal vision. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath these self-evident ideas and focus on personal fulfillment, Rand hides ignorant notions that explain the shortcomings of the misfortunate majority. She once noted that Native Americans deserve to fall to Western influence because they failed to establish their own capitalist infrastructure.
I do not think that I have any right to live in a country merely because I was born here and acted and lived like savages.
Yikes. I'll leave the clarifications on Rand at that. There's much more on the politics and following Rand enticed, but that's not for this video. This isn't to say, however, that you shouldn't be more selfish, because you should. And it's not that all of Rand's ideas are invaluable. We've been discussing the importance of individuals' visions, the preservation of a sole idea. I generally consider this concept to be effective. Let's do some math to better understand the idea. Everyone is familiar with taking averages. Say I have two students, one scores a 72% while his peer scores a 96%. Add the scores, divide by 2, collectively the students scored an average of 84%. If these students had taken the test together as a committee and compromised throughout, they would have likely gotten an 84%. Now apply this to creative pursuits. The Fountainhead uses skyscrapers and architecture as an example. Say a talented young architect is looking to construct a modern building to fulfill his own desire and ultimately evolves his practice. If the young architect, however, is interrupted by the committee and must make compromises to his design, the product is going to be average. Not bad enough to evoke criticism, but not good enough to offer inspiration. A world based on collectivism is prone to being average. It's the 84 versus the 96%. With this idea of collectivism, humans will succumb to perpetual mediocrity, as progress fails to make exponential growth and eventually fades away. No one has ever succeeded entirely independently, though, nor can one person know everything or posture to recognize every infinite possibility. You must be capable of synthesizing the input of others when appropriate and agreeable. Be selfish in the way that you curate information, but don't succumb to the influence of everyone with an opinion. There's a table in a book that I've been revisiting, The Lessons of History by Will and Ariel Durant, that supports the idea in its most basic form. The table focuses on the innate instincts of humans and corresponding habits. The instincts of fight, positive, and flight, negative, generate the habits competition, positive, and cooperation, negative, respectively. These reactions are primitive, undoubtedly, but what's fascinating is the correlation with the instincts of association and privacy. These instincts generate the habits communication, positive, and solitude, negative. Cooperation falls to competition, but solitude falls to communication. There are degrees to everything, and it's reckless to assert anything absolutely, but I feel that these general concepts appeal to primitive human wiring, to our natural state of operation. And now that we've got our ideology to consider when pursuing any goal or practicing a craft, let's explore interpersonal selfishness. Not everything's about work and art. How should your selfishness influence your contact with people and your altruism? Coincidentally, I've been reading Anthony de Mello's Awareness, Following the Fountainhead, and it explores the twisted logic of a traditional sense of selfishness. I'll subject you to my reading one last time. Here's an anecdote from Awareness that conveys the inefficiencies of common unselfish thinking. A woman once told me that when she was a child, her Jesuit cousin gave a retreat in the Jesuit church in Milwaukee. He opened each conference with the words, "The test of love is sacrifice, and the gauge of love is unselfishness." "That's marvelous," I asked her. "Would you want me to love you at the cost of my happiness?" "Yes," she answered. "Isn't that delightful? Wouldn't that be wonderful? She would love me at the cost of her happiness, and I would love her at the cost of my happiness." And so you've got two unhappy people, but long live love. Considering the ultimate pursuit of man, happiness, we see how ineffective traditional selfishness is. If our pleasure lies in personal and interpersonal unhappiness, then surely unregulated, unselfish behavior would yield the best outcome. If you're selfish enough, though, to seek happiness for both you and your peers, feel free to embrace consideration of the self. What about altruism? I find the diction impossible, as it defines one's charity as selfless and disinterested. For one, why would anyone pursue anything that they're disinterested in? I certainly wouldn't want disinterested individuals managing the well-being of the misfortunate. Acts of charity are inherently selfish. DeMello even points out how the masquerade of charity allows us to feel good about doing good, but promotes the illusion of being selfless and only concerned with the well-being of others. Of course you care for others, but again, admitting to the primary selfish catalyst to your actions is ultimately more efficient. Be blatantly selfish in your charitable endeavors so that you may pursue them without regard. Don't mistake self-sacrifice for kindness. Don't compromise your way to average, and don't get in someone's way just to clear a path for yourself. There's an abundance in this world for everyone to find success. Try to be more empathetic and always keep an open mind. I'll see you in the next one. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. This was like a 3-week project. Didn't quite turn out how I wanted it to. I don't know if you guys could tell, there's a bunch of audio issues, a lot of re-recordings. Just didn't come out the way I quite wanted it. The rewriting was pretty rough. Like along the way, I just found out more and more about Ayn Rand and just how much kind of my interpretation of the book differed from hers, and so I kind of had to split the video in half and rewrite a bunch just to make the clarification. But all in all, I still support the message. The pacing, the continuity is kind of a mess, but a lot to fix in the next one, and I'm really excited for what's to come in the future. Already got something planned. I'd say 2 weeks from now is probably the best bet. That one's mostly going to be about design, but it's got a unique twist to it, and I think everybody will enjoy it. So thanks again for stopping by, and I'll see you later.